Hi everybody, it's Dr. Z. So we didn't finish Italian fascism in the last video, so this one will be short. We're just going to talk about the resistance, the partisans, and the fall of Mussolini. So the partisans, or in Italian partigiani, they formed the resistance. And so the word partisans is important for you to understand, right? In being that not everybody was behind the fascists. Not everybody was a fascist. Not everybody liked it. And there was a very strong and very crafty resistance movement to this ideology. And they had a lot of fun, interesting sayings, right? That fascism is hunger, death to the Duce. The Duce, by the way, is Mussolini. I don't think I mentioned that. That was kind of his idea. They also called Stalin mustachio, right? The mustache, right? Or the buffoon. So they would say, vieni, that Stalin is coming. Vieni buffone, or vieni mustachio. And so a lot of these partisans were either Catholics working through their Vatican radio, the Roman Observer, right? Or they were communists, or they were socialists. And women in particular had a particular role in the Italian resistance movement as staffette. They were peddlers. This means peddlers, right? The bike couriers. Women can navigate through society kind of unnoticed sometimes. And that is a wonderful trait to have if you are trying to pass secret messages around. And so they would do this on bicycles. But with a lot of the mechanism, a lot of the reason for the Italians and the fall of Mussolini has to do with the Allies in World War II, has to do with their allegiance to the Nazis. And a lot of historians look at the failure of Italians in Greece in World War II, and then the invasion, the Allied invasion of the peninsula, which we will talk a lot more when we get to World War II. We'll talk more about. The Mussolini had basically become a puppet government at this point for the Nazis, for Hitler. And that government was called the Republic of Salo. And they had moved the capital further north to kind of get out of Rome and out of the reach of the Allied invasion. And eventually Mussolini was captured and he was tried, and his body was hung up along with his girlfriend and a number of other of his comrades. You can see this photograph here, and his body was desecrated by the groups of people, but his legacy remains. There are, as I mentioned about communism, Soviet communism, as well as Italian fascism, the legacy and the nostalgia for this time period remains among those who found it useful for them. But for the majority of people, I think Mussolini's legacy is more of a clear one. He is the inventor of an ideology that I would argue we still struggle with today in the Western world and around the world. Fascism is sometimes hard to recognize, but we have to remember how it's defined, what it means, and what life is like during and after it. And I think one of the biggest takeaways, at least for an American historian, I'm an American and I'm also an historian, is about the power and the fragility of democracy. Democracy is something that humans, in my opinion, we haven't come up with a better way to govern ourselves, right? Fascism, communism, these totalitarian ideologies are opposites or, alternatives to liberal parliamentarism. And they exist because of the problems with democracy and how difficult it can be, right? But we certainly learn from these stories how easily democracy is brought down and how hard it is to rebuild. So I think maybe that can be our big takeaway. All right. Stay tuned. The next part is coming up, and that is all about Nazi Germany. Okay. Thank you.